How's it going out there in YouTube land? This is Josh at Tryin Tech, and I am very pleased to finally bring you my review for the new Dell Alienware M15 R2. And we're going to talk about this laptop here. My review model is the 15-inch M15 R2 variant with the i7-9750H CPU and the RTX 2070 Max-Q 512 gigabytes of SSD set up in RAID 0 and 16 gigabytes of RAM. And we're going to talk about this laptop as it has come out as kind of an answer to a lot of the complaints that were received about the first Dell Alienware M15 and M17, which was Dell's first attempt at a thin and light gaming laptop. If you have ever owned or used any Alienware laptops in the past, Dell and Alienware kind of had a reputation for building kind of thick, chunky laptops that were almost kind of desktop replacements. And so when the Alienware M15 and M17 first came out, it was the first time that Dell had taken an attempt at making a thin and light gaming laptop. And some of the main complaints that they received with the Dell Alienware M15, and rightfully so, was really hot temps, especially with the CPU, and it also kind of got some criticism in its design. Although the side bezels were very thin, the top and bottom chin were very thick and very chunky, and so it kind of detracted a lot from the overall design of the laptop, and it just kind of felt like Alienware was kind of behind in regards to where a lot of other laptop manufacturers are in 2019 when it comes to thin and light laptops and laptops that are just a lot more streamlined looking. And so in this review we're going to discuss, did Dell and Alienware achieve that? Did they manage to rectify the main complaints and criticisms of the first generation of the Dell Alienware M15 and M17 line? And we're also going to talk about some of the things that maybe Dell didn't do so well. So the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to this laptop is the design. And if you look at the design, I don't know about you, but I personally just really love this design language of this laptop. If I was going to give any criticism about the actual design, it's the fact that this back piece here kind of extends and protrudes beyond where the actual hinge of the display is, which is right here, and then it comes out almost another inch past. And the reason why Dell did that was to allow more room for cooling solutions that would allow to blow hot air out the back. If you look at the bottom here, so this honeycomb design here, this is actually vents where air gets sucked up in the bottom here, and that air comes up through the laptop and then it gets exhausted out both sides here. We have side vents here, and then we have the back vents coming out the back here. Along with our back vents here, we have some ports. We have a full-size HDMI port, we have a mini display port, a USB-C 3.1 Thunderbolt port, and then the graphics amplifier port, which you could use the USB-C 3.1 Thunderbolt port if you wanted to use an external GPU, if you wanted a little bit more horsepower, but using Dell's graphics amplifier is actually going to give you better performance. And so while that is proprietary to Dell and Alienware laptops, it definitely provides, you're going to get more power and bandwidth as far as just graphical throughput using the graphics amplifier as compared to the USB-C 3.1 Thunderbolt port. On the side here we have a vent. This is a Kensington lock RG45 Ethernet port, and then you have a USB 3.0 USB-A port, headphone jack. On the other side here you have two USB 3.0 ports, and then another vent here. Alright, as far as ports, it has pretty much all the ports you could ask for. And one other thing here is this is your power jack port, and this is where it's actually going to your power jack is going to connect there in the back. So that's just something to be aware of if you like to actually use your laptop on your lap, is that power jack is actually going to hook up in the back and not on the side. So that could possibly be an issue for you. I personally don't actually use my laptop on my lap, okay, and so for me it's a non-issue. Most of the major ports are in the back and out of the way, so you can use most of your major ports are going to be there in the rear, which I personally would prefer, but you also have your USB 3.0 ports that are here on the side, and you got 3 full-size ports there. Alright, so also some of the things here, this is the Lunar White edition. To me it's still pretty subdued. You see a subdued logo here for the 15, which is for the M15 model. The M17 model actually has a 1.7 here. This Alienware logo here actually lights up. Alright, most of the body is actually comprised of magnesium, other than a few parts here which are made out of plastic. Something about this plastic trim here, it depends on the model you get, but the first one I received, actually the seams did not fully snap in on the top here, and so there was a little bit of issue with that. That plastic strip did not fully meet in with the body. I'm happy to report that this model here that I have, that I received, the replacement I received, as far as build quality, has no issues. The weight of the laptop itself is actually 4.7 pounds, and it is just under 0.8 inches thick as far as how high it stands when it's closed. Alright, your power brick though is going to add quite a bit of weight. Unfortunately, I don't have a scale to weigh the actual weight of the power brick, like a digital scale, but when I do get a digital scale, I will update my findings with that. But for the record, the 2070 Max-Q variant, you are going to need a 230 watt power brick, and as you can see, it is a chunky boy. Okay, so while it's not very thick, it is very wide, and it does weigh quite a bit if you actually hold this in your hand. So this is going to add substantial weight to your overall carry weight if you're throwing this in your laptop bag. And you are going to want your power brick, as this laptop is only going to survive so long off of a charging port. So we'll talk more about the design in just a minute, and I'm actually going to open this laptop up and I'll show you some more features with the design here. Okay, so moving on to the design here, some more design elements here with the Alienware M15. First off, as you see, the side bezels have definitely been reduced compared to the first revision of the M15. As you see, the top here, top chin here, or I should say top bezel here, has definitely been reduced compared to the prior iteration of the Alienware M15. Although there is still a fairly large chin here on the bottom, it is not near as bad. And then down here you see they actually have the Tobii eye tracking sensor. Given the choice, I much rather would have preferred to have instead of a Tobii eye tracker sensor, an infrared camera and Windows IR functionality with Windows Hello functionality built in. You see here now on the keyboard they actually have per key RGB lighting, and that can be controlled in the Alienware Command Center app, and you can actually go inside and actually change your profiles. Here within the FX tab, you can actually change this to different profiles. You can change each key. You can change the pattern, whether it's pulsing, static color, or you can actually turn it completely off. And that actually includes the Alienware head logo here that's on the top, as well as your RGB lighting that is in the back here. All right, you can actually turn that off completely. That's actually going to shut off in a minute because I just closed the lid. All right, so you can actually control all of that within the Alienware Command Center software, and you can actually turn everything off if you want. All right. This keyboard does not have a full-size number pad. However, the typing experience is very pleasant on this. It is not a mechanical keyboard, okay, but as far as key travel and just feedback typing experience, it is actually one of the most satisfying experiences I've had on a gaming laptop keyboard. And I actually came from using the Acer Predator 700, and that one had a mechanical keyboard. The trackpad here feels very nice. It is not quite as nice as, say, the one on the Razer. I will say out of all the gaming laptops I've tried, the Razer trackpad just has the best feel. While this is glass lined here, it has a glass touchpad. It is very nice, but it is not as large as the one on the Razer, and it is not as nice feeling. I think Razer really, bottom line, has probably the best as far as Windows PCs built-in trackpads, and I'd say if I was to compare it to anything, I'd compare it to the trackpad on the on a MacBook. All right. The other issue with this trackpad is that it does not make as good use of this space as the M17. The M17 actually has a larger trackpad, obviously, because it's a 17-inch laptop, but the M17 actually has a full-size numpad, and with the full-size numpad, it has a much larger trackpad. But if you look here, this right here is where the trackpad lines up and the edge of it is, but you see there's a whole nother probably 3/8 of an inch that I think they could have used. So they definitely did not make the best use of it. And while the trackpad is fairly wide, it's not as wide as, say, the MSI GS65, which had a really wide trackpad. It was very large. I think it was slightly taller than this, but I do know it was definitely wider, and that was a nice feeling trackpad. I think Alienware and Dell definitely missed the mark when it came to the trackpad, but they definitely get a win with the much improved keyboard, the per key RGB lighting, and so it's no longer 4-zone, and being able to control all of the lighting zones within the Alienware Command Center app. And the other thing where they really get a win over the last iteration is that these reduced bezel sizes and top bezel and chin bezel sizes compared to the last Alienware, because it had a really big top chunky bezel on top that was really angular looking on the last Alienware, and it also had a really big size chin on the bottom. As far as the display, all right, this display I've had has little to no backlight bleed issues, and what I'll actually do is I will actually, let's do a backlight bleed test real quick, and I'll show you what it looks like. I'm going to turn out the lights. It's not going to be completely dark because there's still some daylight, but we'll do a backlight bleed test. Backlight bleed test, and we're going to test this out real quick, and I'll show you so you can get a look at what this looks like. This model I got has little to no backlight bleed, but just a note that the first one I received, or not the first one, but the second replacement I received did have backlight bleed issues. So
We're going to put the backlight bleed test on. Okay, keep in mind this is full brightness. I'm going to turn out the lights real quick so you can get a look. Okay, so there is just a little bit of backlight bleed right there, and a little bit right there, and another little hot spot right there. But overall, it's not bad. Not the best monitor, but definitely not the worst that I've gotten. It's not terrible, but it sure is not anything to write home about. The MSI GS65 that I had and the GS75, which are color calibrated displays, Pantone color certified and calibrated, are much more color accurate and just overall better. Although I will say, when I had the GS65 and I went through a couple iterations of that, I did have backlight bleed issues with at least one of those, and then the other one was great. And the GS75, I had no issues with it, and that monitor was amazing. So for gaming, it definitely gets the job done. If you're looking to do professional color work, you're probably going to want to look somewhere else. One thing I do want to mention is a 144 Hz IPS display. All right, for gaming it's great. It is not a G-Sync display though, so kind of a gig there, but that depends on how you look at it. It's a trade-off between battery life. So if you have G-Sync, it's going to eat more battery, or being able to use Nvidia Optimus and run on that integrated GPU in order to save battery life when you're not gaming. I would rather save on battery life, but like I said, I'll talk later about battery life, but it's not, the battery life on this is not the greatest, and if we had G-Sync, it would be even worse. All right, so overall, I think they've greatly improved the design. They've greatly improved the keyboard. I think they could do better with the mouse pad compared to other laptops of this size and class. The GS65 definitely has a better, more luxurious feeling trackpad, and I'd say the Razer, hands down, out of all the thin and light gaming laptops that I've tried, are the best, bottom line. But overall, definitely improved the design. It is not as gamery as I put it compared to the Alienware M15 R1, so definitely a big win there. And next we're going to move on to thermals and noise.
Okay, so now that we've talked about design, I want to talk about noise and thermals. In regards to one of the main key complaints, besides the actual design of the original Alienware M15 R2, or R1 I should say, the other major complaint that this laptop received when the first thin and light Alienware M15 came out was thermal performance, especially when it came to the CPU. All right, and so the real big question is, have they addressed it in this revision? I will say, overall, they've improved a lot. Thermals have been a lot better on this laptop compared to the Alienware M15 that I had, which was with the i7-8750H and the RTX 2070 Max-Q, where every single laptop I received of that actually had thermal issues, and it was overheating on the CPU. And no matter what I did, undervolting, everything I tried to do with that laptop, I could not manage thermals. And it was even in idle temperatures. The idle temperatures were just crazy high on that laptop. So have they fixed it? Well, I'm sad to say they haven't completely fixed it. And the reason I say that is, while this laptop that I have here, the thermal performance has been great. I've had no complaints after some tweaks. I've had no complaints with the thermal performance on this. However, the first two models of this laptop I received had CPU heating issues, and that was after trying to apply tweaks and fixes and things to manage the CPU temps. I'm sad to say it was just a non-starter. The first model had overheating for the CPU. The second model had overheating on the CPU and had really bad backlight bleed issues, and that was just irreconcilable with me. And this one, I'm happy to report I've had no thermal issues after applying some tweaks and fixes. So what were those tweaks and fixes? Well, first off, I actually undervolted the CPU by minus 150 millivolts. Okay, that right there is the number one thing that I've actually been able to just really get really good thermal performance with this. The other thing that I did was basically when I'm running intensive apps or games, I run the fans in the full speed profile within the Alienware Command Center, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. And running that at full speed helps keep temperatures down. And then the other thing is in instances where the laptop got really hot or really warm, I actually would prop up the back of the laptop by just putting something like a DVD or game case, like a PS4 game case, and I just prop that up in the back. And what that does is that it would actually allow more airflow to come up in the bottom through that honeycomb vent pattern that I showed you on the bottom there, and that actually just increased airflow. Now, even without the laptop propped and with a modest 150 millivolt undervolt, max peak CPU temperatures were 94 degrees Celsius with no thermal throttling on any cores. And that's the key thing is, yes, you may say, wow, those 94 degrees Celsius, that's really hot. Okay, well, it is, but it's not as bad as you may think. And the main thing is that you are not reaching that junction temperature of 100 degrees Celsius, and that is the max safe temperature for what Intel's deemed is like, okay, this is the safe temperature before we start downclocking the CPU in order to keep temps down. Okay, and that was the peak. That was while operating, doing gaming benchmarks with Shadow of the Tomb Raider. And out of all the games I tested, and I tested 5 or 6 as well as Firestrike, and you're actually going to see that in the performance benchmarks, is that I really did not get bad temps in all the gaming that I've done on this, and I've been gaming on this thing for almost a month now. But Shadow of the Tomb Raider, for whatever reason, it just utilizes a lot more of the CPU. So even using some CPU intensive games like Far Cry New Dawn or Far Cry 5, yes, I would get fairly high CPU temps, but they would not get near as high as Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Okay, so it's just something to be aware of. If you do want to play this game, that game on this, you may want to use something like a laptop cooling pad. Now, I myself did get a laptop cooling pad for this laptop. However, it was just kind of an added precaution just to lower temps more. The laptop cooling pad itself is not necessary to manage temps. The main thing needed to manage temps is an undervolt. And so you can actually undervolt the CPU a couple ways, and later on I'll do a video on that. And once I get that video up, I'll make sure to link that video in the description below. But do not try to just match my settings of minus 150 millivolt undervolt, because that's actually for these 9750H processors, that's actually a really good undervolt with stability to get a stable performance with 150 millivolts undervolt. Typically you're going to find most of these 9750H processors can at least do a minus 100 millivolt undervolt. On average, you'll probably get somewhere between 100 to 120 with stability, with no crashes or blue screens or hanging in games. But once you start to get above 120, it depends on the silicon lottery, but you may not be able to just put in a 150 millivolt undervolt. I recommend using some sort of third-party software that is going to either reset if you do get a crash. So Intel XTU, while it's kind of a more bloated program and does not actually give you as much control as throttle stop, the good thing about Intel XTU is that it will reset your settings if you have a crash or instability. And it'll detect that you crashed, and that most likely that crash was caused due to instability, and what it'll do is just reset to the stock settings, okay? But if you apply those tweaks and you are still getting crazy high temps, my recommendation is to contact Dell customer support. If you're under 30 days, contact customer care and see if you can get an exchange. And I'm telling you, I've worked with Dell extensively with both these laptops and the Dell Alienware M15R1, and overall their customer support has been pretty solid. It wasn't until I tried to get this replacement in that I had any issues with exchanging, and it was due mostly to the way that second replacement model got processed when it got shipped. Excuse me. When it got shipped to me. Sorry. I've got something in my throat here. But I'm gonna run the software here, and I'm gonna let you listen to what it sounds like in Alien Command Center with the fans on full speed, just so you can get a listen for it. And then I'm going to talk about noise levels, what kind of noise levels I was experiencing and testing, and some of the other things here. So I'm going to set it here. You have 5 profiles to choose from here in the Command Center: quiet, performance, cool, full speed, and balance. So if you're gaming, you actually want to put it in 1 and 2 profiles: performance or full speed. Okay, nothing else is going to run those fans loud or hard enough to actually keep temps down. All right, what that's also going to do is increase the performance of your CPU and GPU. It doesn't overclock it, all it does is raise the TDP limit on your CPU. All right, so this is performance. Which pretty much sounds like full speed. So honestly, you're better just running it, and that's full speed. There's not much difference. So I'm going to tell you, okay, so it is fairly loud, and I do have to talk a little bit louder over the fans, but overall, this comparatively compared to other laptops of this class, the noise levels are not that bad. Okay, so I'm gonna put it back on balanced. Okay, but that was just a test of what it sounds like on full speed. Okay, and using my phone microphone and using the noise decibel app, I tested at a max noise levels, and this was about 2 feet away from the laptop, not even 2 feet, probably a foot away from the laptop. I was measuring noise levels of 49 decibels max. So even from where I'm sitting from this laptop right now, the noise levels will not be bad. You can actually hear your game over the noise levels, and if it really is an issue, you can utilize headphones. But I've heard other laptops, and a lot of times it sounds like a jet engine taking off when you're running max fans. So this comparatively is actually not bad. And I would say actually Dell probably could have erred on the side of caution and ran the fans a little bit louder at max fan speed for the full speed profile, in order to keep those CPU temps down, so that users are not having to just by default having to go in and undervolt their CPU and do all these other tweaks just to keep CPU temps down. So talking about the actual software here as well, okay? So one of the biggest issues that I take with keeping thermals in control, yes, I can use XTU, and yes, I can use Throttle Stop or another program like that to either limit my CPU TDP, limit my CPU clock speed, or undervolt the actual voltages going to my CPU. And these are all things that I can do to keep my CPU temps under control. But really, what would have been a much preferable method was more control within the Alienware Command Center software to keep temps down. Okay, and really the way I could do that is if you allowed, or if Dell allowed some way that I could set a default fan profile. And Dell, I'm going to tell you, considering that I have to rely on Alienware Command Center, you really need to fix your software, Dell. Okay? One, I need more control. I need to be able to set fan profiles in here so that if my CPU or my GPU gets to a certain temp, that I am able to set a fan curve, a more aggressive fan curve, in order to keep CPU temps down. Because the GPU temps on this are golden. Like on average, when I'm running full speed, my GPU temps are in the 60s, and I'd say the max I saw with my GPU temps was 72 degrees Celsius, which is nowhere near Nvidia's set thermal profile, where they'll start downclocking that RTX 2070 Max Q. So on average, I mean, I was seeing really high clock speeds on my GPU, exceeding often 1600 megahertz, often getting up to even as high as 1890 megahertz, which I was hitting power limits at that point before I was hitting thermal limits. So kudos to Dell for that. They've done a great job in keeping the GPU cool. They just really need to work on a beefier thermal solution for their CPU to keep those CPU temps cool. But like I said, if you allow me to set a more aggressive fan curve, I could keep my CPU temps much cooler, and I would only need my fans to ramp up during CPU intensive tasks or gaming, and that way I wouldn't have to go changing back my profiles. Now I can set per app profiles here within the Alienware Command Center suite. The issue is that one, the profiles don't always properly save, and two, when I change my desktop profile, say I set it to balanced, right? No matter what I set my per app profile on, it's going to reset everything back to balanced or cool or quiet or whatever I set my desktop one to. I then have to go back in the software and resave all my profiles. And it's just a hassle, it's a real pain. So Dell, this is a self-inflicted injury. Fix your software. And the other issue I have with the software is that they did fix it with the latest update, but it's hard to find where to download the latest version unless you download it within the software. And guess what? If you download it within the software, you have to wait till the software finishes downloading the updates and installing the updates before I can actually get into my profiles. I think it was the second version of this model with the RTX 2070 Max Q that I was actually able to bypass the updates, and it was because for whatever reason that one had the latest version of the Alien Command Center software installed. Okay, they finally did address that, but right now even the version I have on this model here, after I had to factory reset this laptop, excuse me, it does not allow me to bypass it. So I can't bypass the updates. So I have to wait till it finishes when I really just want to get into my app profiles and be able to change my thermal profiles. So Dell, you really need to fix that. You need to allow more control over my fans, especially considering this is the only app that I can use to control this laptop. I cannot use like another third-party software. It will not let me control the fans. To control the fans, I have to use the Alienware Command Center. Okay, so fix it, please. Fix your software. All right. But overall, the only other issue I've had software-wise with this laptop, and it was kind of weird. I mentioned I had to factory reset this laptop, and I actually had this bug pop up in 2 of these models I received. It happened in the second one I got, and this one. For whatever reason, the touchpad just stopped working, and I don't know why. It just completely stopped working. It said the device was being recognized, it said drivers were updated, it said everything was good, but it was not being recognized. And I had to factory reset the laptop for my touchpad to start working. Okay? It's just a minor little bug that maybe hopefully Dell can fix or resolve. I don't know what caused it, but it's happened in at least 2 of the models that I got of this laptop, okay? Like I said, I think if Dell fixes some of the thermal control issues and the software issues, I think this would be just an amazing laptop. And you may ask, why am I willing to put up with having to tweak the CPU, tweak other things in order to get those CPU thermals down and deal with some of the other shortcomings of this laptop? I'll tell you why. Besides the design itself, which I absolutely love, this laptop has the best performance I've gotten out of any of the RTX 2070 Max-Q laptops that I've tested in this thin and light class. And that includes the MSI 17.3 GS75, which had RTX 2070 Max-Q. And while the performance was great on that, it's nowhere near this. But I'm going to tell you, if you are not willing to tweak your settings when it comes to the CPU, if you're not willing to kind of do some of those enthusiast level tweaks, and if you expect to just open up the laptop and for it to just work out of the box without having to make any changes or tweaks to it, you're probably going to want to look at a different laptop. I'm telling you that. But when it comes to the thermals on this, if you are willing to make a few adjustments, this is an amazing laptop for performance. And so coming up next, we're actually going to take a look at some performance benchmarks, and we are going to then come back, wrap up for summary and final thoughts. All right, see you there. For now, let's roll that beautiful benchmark footage. Going to my CPU, and these are all things that I can do to keep my CPU temps under control. But really, what would have been a much preferable method was more control within the Alienware Command Center software to keep temps down. Okay, and really the way I could do that is if you allowed, or if Dell allowed some way that I could set a default fan profile. And Dell, I'm going to tell you, considering that I have to rely on Alienware Command Center, you really need to fix your software, Dell. Okay? One, I need more control. I need to be able to set fan profiles in here so that if my CPU or my GPU gets to a certain temp, that I am able to set a fan curve, a more aggressive fan curve, in order to keep CPU temps down. Because the GPU temps on this are golden. Like, on average, when I'm running full speed, my GPU temps are in the 60s, and I'd say the max I saw with my GPU temps was 72 degrees Celsius, which is nowhere near Nvidia's set thermal profile, where they'll start downclocking that RTX 2070 Max-Q. So on average, I mean, I was seeing really high clock speeds on my GPU. Exceeding often 1600 megahertz, often getting up to even as high as 1890 megahertz, which I was hitting power limits at that point before I was hitting thermal limits. So kudos to Dell for that. They've done a great job in keeping the GPU cool. They just really need to work on a beefier thermal solution for their CPU to keep those CPU temps cool. But like I said, if you allow me to set a more aggressive fan curve, I could keep my CPU temps much cooler, and I would only need my fans to ramp up during CPU intensive tasks or gaming. And that way I wouldn't have to go changing back my profiles. Now I can set per app profiles here within the Alienware Command Center suite. The issue is that, one, the profiles don't always properly save, and two, when I change my desktop profile, say I set it to balanced, right? No matter what I set my per app profile on, it's going to reset everything back to balanced or cool or quiet or whatever I set my desktop one to. I then have to go back in the software and resave all my profiles. And it's just a hassle, it's a real pain. So Dell, this is a self-inflicted injury. Fix your software. And the other issue I have with the software is that they did fix it with the latest update, but it's hard to find where to download the latest version unless you download it within the software. And guess what? If you download it within the software, you have to wait till the software finishes downloading the updates and installing the updates before I can actually get into my profiles. I think it was the second version of this model with the RTX 2070 Max-Q that I was actually able to bypass the updates, and it was because for whatever reason that one had the latest version of the Alien Command Center software installed. Okay, they finally did address that, but right now even the version I have on this model here, after I had to factory reset this laptop, excuse me, it does not allow me to bypass it. So I can't bypass the updates. So I have to wait till it finishes when I really just want to get into my app profiles and be able to change my thermal profiles. So Dell, you really need to fix that. You need to allow more control over my fans, especially considering this is the only app that I can use to control this laptop. I cannot use like another third-party software. It will not let me control the fans. To control the fans, I have to use the Alienware Command Center. Okay, so fix it, please. Fix your software. All right. But overall, the only other issue I've had software-wise with this laptop, and it was kind of weird. I mentioned I had to factory reset this laptop, and I actually had this bug pop up in 2 of these models I received. It happened in the second one I got, and this one. For whatever reason, the touchpad just stopped working. And I don't know why. It just completely stopped working. It said the device was being recognized. It said drivers were updated. It said everything was good, but it was not being recognized. And I had to factory reset the laptop for my touchpad to start working. Okay? It's just a minor little bug that maybe hopefully Dell can fix or resolve. I don't know what caused it, but it's happened in at least 2 of the models that I got of this laptop. Okay, like I said, I think if Dell fixes some of the thermal control issues and the software issues, I think this would be just an amazing laptop. And you may ask, why am I willing to put up with having to tweak the CPU, tweak other things in order to get those CPU thermals down and deal with some of the other shortcomings of this laptop? I'll tell you why. Besides the design itself, which I absolutely love, this laptop has the best performance I've gotten out of any of the RTX 2070 Max-Q laptops that I've tested in this thin and light class. And that includes the MSI 17.3 GS75, which had RTX 2070 Max-Q, and while the performance was great on that, it's nowhere near this. But I'm going to tell you, if you are not willing to tweak your settings when it comes to the CPU, if you're not willing to kind of do some of those enthusiast level tweaks, and if you expect to just open up the laptop and for it to just work out of the box without having to make any changes or tweaks to it, you're probably going to want to look at a different laptop. I'm telling you that. But when it comes to the thermals on this, if you are willing to make a few adjustments, this is an amazing laptop for performance. And so coming up next, we're actually going to take a look at some performance benchmarks, and we are going to then come back, wrap up for summary and final thoughts. All right, see you there. For now, let's roll that beautiful benchmark footage.
Hey.
So I decided to put it back down in my body. Close my eyes, I try to block the wind. I put my hands up over my eyes, see through my hands. When finally releasing it, we found that the one that was still on the down on I've never felt anything that awesome, but it scared the hell out of me. I don't scare scare me to the point where I become weak. Did everything I can to get the run out of the house. As long as I can take it fun. It was hard to try to step off. On the way.
Oh, so the house was a museum?
Okay, so we're back here. I hope that the benchmarks that you saw gave you some light on the performance of this. All right. One note I do want to make is if you saw from my Shadow of the Tomb Raider benchmark temps, okay? So I mentioned that earlier. I mentioned max CPU temps were around 94 degrees Celsius, and that I was able to lower those by propping up the laptop and getting it down to 91 degrees Celsius. And if you notice from my Shadow of the Tomb Raider performance video that I shot, okay, temps were actually running higher there. Why they were running higher, I'm not exactly sure. I will say on the day I retested everything, because Nvidia, of course, pushed out another driver update after I'd already done my initial testing. So on my initial testing, yes, my peak temperature in Shadow of the Tomb Raider was 94 degrees Celsius. That day that I retested, the ambient room temperature was slightly higher, so it was 71 degrees in the room temperature. And I also was running it not propped up, so it was, other than that, the main difference was the change in the ambient room temperature. So my initial round of testing and most of my initial playtime with this gaming laptop, room temps were around 67 degrees Celsius. All right. For whatever reason, CPU temps were just running much higher that day that I retested everything after the Nvidia driver updates. Okay. It may have been an anomaly because most of my other temps not only were about the same, some of these CPU temps were actually a bit lower. So why Shadow of the Tomb Raider was running hotter than what my initial peak temperatures were, I'm not exactly sure. Checking my hardware info, I did get 98 degrees Celsius. So it is something to be aware of. Like I said, something about Shadow of the Tomb Raider, it just really, really runs that CPU at max, like full throttle, okay? So something to be aware of, all right? Like I said, overall, my CPU temps have been good, and I have been gaming on this a lot, all right? This laptop has been able to throw pretty much anything, it's been able to handle almost anything I throw at it, and just kind of laughed in its face. Yes, I have had to undervolt the CPU. Yes, I've had to make other tweaks and run those fans at full speed profile with the noise profile, so I've had to deal with increased fan noise, but performance wise it's been able to handle everything I throw at it. I mean, for an RTX 2070 Max Q to get a Firestrike score of, I was getting average 16,700 and some change, and that was my overall score, and consistently getting over or at 19,000 graphics score and a CPU score of 16,000, sometimes a little bit below 16,000. It would be like 15,900 and some change, or just exceeding 16,000 CPU physics score on Firestrike. For a laptop of this size, 4.7 pounds is absolutely insane, okay? But with that performance comes a price, and that price is thermals, okay? If you're willing to deal with that, this may be the laptop for you. If you're not, you're probably gonna wanna look somewhere else. Some of the other things that I really took issue with it, and I didn't talk about it earlier, is battery life on this laptop is not very good, okay? You're going to want to have that power brick. That power brick for the 230 watt, if you're getting an RTX 2070 Max Q, you are going to need that 230 watt power brick. Does add a lot of weight. I found during my battery testing, this was at, I was on balanced power mode. Screen was around 30% brightness, and I did still have the RGB on the keyboard. I was getting 2 hours and 45 minutes. I'm sure if you shut off all of the lights within Alienware Command Center Suite, which you can do, you can shut off all the RGBs, set it to 30%. Your mileage may vary, but this laptop only has a 76 watt hour battery. And unfortunately, compared to the last version of the Alienware M15 R1, you had that option if you did not have a mechanical hard drive that you could upgrade to a 90 watt hour battery. Upgradability on this laptop is not the greatest, okay? You can upgrade the SSD in this, and that is about it. My SSD speeds on this were actually really good. I was getting read speeds of anywhere from 3,000 to 3,200 megabit per second sequential, and I was getting around 2,000 megabits, or a little bit under 1,800 to 2,000 megabits per second sequential write, okay? Random read and write speeds were very good, peaking at around, they were around 950 to 1,000 megabytes per second, and that was random reads and writes. So that was actually very good, but keep in mind, the SSD in this is actually two SSDs set up in RAID O, which has its advantages and disadvantages. First off, if I lose my data, there is no way to recover if it's in RAID O, okay? So if something gets borked with one of my SSDs, my data is gone, unless if I backed it up. So you're probably gonna wanna back it up on an external SSD or hard drive every once in a while so that you have some sort of data backup. But the SSD is about the only thing that you can upgrade. So I could take out these two SSDs in RAID O, maybe pop in a much snappier Samsung 970 or even 960 Evo. Samsung is very snappy SSD, 1 terabyte, and upgrade the storage. But other than that, my upgrade options are really limited. I mentioned you can upgrade to a 90 watt hour battery, and the way that this is designed right now, your max RAM is 16 gigs set up in dual channel. All right, you can not upgrade that. So if I wanted to upgrade to 32 gigs, I actually can't do this at the time of this review. All right, Dell says that they are getting other options to where you're now going to be able to get it with 32 gigs, but if you need more than 16 gigs, again, this laptop's probably not the one for you. And unfortunately, the RAM is actually soldered to the motherboard, and the motherboard is reversed, so it is not upgrader friendly, and because the RAM is soldered, you don't really have any options. The other thing is, if you want to try to lower your temps by maybe applying your own thermal paste and doing a repaste, again, unless you're an advanced, like really advanced and knowledgeable at laptop repair, this is not an easy thing to do. I actually attempted to do that with one of the models I received, and I was just attempting to see what was going on with the heatsink on it, and the heatsink on it was not fully pressed down on it. But I'm telling you, it was not an easy process. The motherboard is reversed, and it is a very, very technical process. So again, if you're one of those power users that maybe says, okay, my temps are a little high, I'm going to attempt to do my own repaste with maybe some Grizzly Cryonaut or something like that. That in itself does not void the warranty. However, it is not an easy process, and if you end up damaging something, you could be held liable. So just something to be aware of, and it is not upgrader friendly. You can upgrade the SSD, and that is about it. Other than that, I really have had no major complaints with this machine. Display could be a little bit more color accurate, and that second model that I received had some display backlight screen bleed issues. The trackpad could be larger, and I don't feel like they really took good advantage of this space here. It is not as nice as the one on the M17, which really made good use of that extra space and has a large, luxurious feeling trackpad. So kind of a missed opportunity, but overall this laptop is just really great for what it offers performance-wise. One thing I did not talk about was pricing, and the reason I didn't really talk about it is because, well, pricing on this laptop really depends on Dell and the sales that they're offering at the time. I actually bought this, I want to say it was during the Memorial Day sale initially, and then I actually got it on another sale, and I actually got this variant with the RTX 2070 Max Q and the i7-9750H. Between my military discounts and the $200 Visa gift card that was thrown in, that basically works like a mail-in rebate. Total after tax, I got this laptop for just over $1,800 US with tax. So that was around $1,815, and for that price, it's an amazing deal. The performance, like I said, out of all the RTX 2070 Max Q laptops, this really has had the best performance out of any laptop with the hardware or similar hardware that I've used. But that performance comes with a price, and that price is thermals. If you need a laptop that is going to have better battery life, you're probably going to also want to look somewhere else. But if you're just primarily using this for gaming, the display will more than cut it. At 144 Hertz display definitely gets the job done. No, it doesn't have G-Sync, but honestly, with the hardware you have in here, you really don't need it. None of the games I had went anything below 60 FPS, and that's with max detail settings. All right. I really love the keyboard on this laptop. It's one of the best typing experiences I've had on a laptop, and like I said, I've gone through a lot. I've gone through at least 8 different laptops within the past year, and that includes the laptop that it replaced, and that one had a mechanical keyboard. But overall, this laptop has been great. I'm very happy with it, and yes, it took 2 other replacements. Dell, you really need to work on your quality assurance, okay? I should not be having to go through 2 replacements to get one that actually is getting good thermals, all right? So if that means using slightly better thermal paste, or maybe doing a better job on applying the heatsink, you just really need to work on it, Dell, because it's really putting a bad reputation on your name and on the Alienware name, which is known for really high performance quality products. When you get a couple laptops, or you get your first or even the second laptop, and you're having overheating issues and thermal issues, it just really puts a whole black eye on the whole experience. But if you're willing to, apply some tweaks, undervolt your CPU, and deal with increased fan noise, then this is definitely the laptop for you. All right. If you liked the video, make sure to click like. If you want to see more like this, make sure to click subscribe, and please, 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 please make sure to share this video with your friends. This is Josh at Trying Tech, signing out.